in the last video, we went over some variables and their respective data types. We also went over the print function and the input function, where you can take the input from the user and use it inside your code. In this video, we'll go over conditional programming, which is the if and else statements, the else if. But before we dive into that, we need to discuss something called logic, which will be focused on this Boolean data type and logic statements in general. So, a logic statement yields only two values, which is either true or false. So a logic statement would be, for example, let's create a variable x and its value will be 4 is greater than 3. So the 4 is greater than 3 statement, this is a logic statement and it has one value. In this case, it's true. It can only have either true or false as a value. So if we type y, 4 is less than 3, the value of the statement would be false. Right? Now, most logic statements, they are basically a comparison. So we have greater than, less than, and we have a third one which would be 7 double equal and 8. So here it might get a little confusing, but it's very easy to distinguish. So here this would be false because 7 is not equivalent to 8. So in programming, especially in Python, you use one equal sign to assign a value, and you use a double equal sign to check whether they are equivalent or not. Right, so one equal sign to give value, two equal signs to check the value. Right, so this might be confusing at first, but it's very easy to distinguish later on in your coding journey. So these are some conditional statements. They can only have either a true or false value. So when we type 4 is greater than 3, it can only have two values, which is either true or false. In this case, it is true. We also have one more, which would be 9 is not equal to 4, for example. This would be true. And this is the sign for not equal when you add an exclamation mark before the equal. It looks very similar to the double equal, but this is how you turn it into a not equal. Now we will talk about something called an if statement. You write if and then you write your condition, then two dots, and then your code. Right, so this is how the syntax should go. You write if, you write your condition. In this case, we can write any of these conditions, comparisons, logic statements, and then we can have a piece of code that we want to run if this condition is true. So we will open up a comment. This will only run if the condition inside the if statement is true. We can barely type. All right. So let's type 5 is greater than 3. Then we have the two dots, and in this case, let's say we just wanna print, if I can type correctly, 5, my bad, 5 is greater than 3. So now if we run, it will print 5 is greater than 3, right? So instead of writing 5 is greater than 3, I'm just gonna write x, and we have 4 is greater than 3 and x. There we go. Now let's create a w that is equal to 10, ev that's equal to 9. We can use variables instead. If w is greater than v, we can print w is greater than v, and this should work. There you go. Now, something that goes hand in hand with the if statement is the else statement. And the else doesn't need a condition because of how the structure of the if and else works. So in the else, we wanna print w is less than v, and in the comment, this will only run if the condition and the, if I can type correctly, if in the if statement is false. So the structure of the if and else statements works like this. If the condition here is true, the Python interpreter will run this line of code and then skip everything the else has. But if the condition in the if statement is false, it will skip the if statement entirely and jump straight to the else statement and then run everything that is inside the else statement. This is how this structure of code works with the if and else. Now we have one more condition we didn't think about, which is the case that w and v are equal, right? So we will introduce something called the else if, which can be written as elif in Python. You should be familiar with this else if statement if you've already programmed before. So the else if, because it has an if inside it, it also needs a condition. If it's else by itself, it doesn't need a condition. So the condition here would be else if w is, w is smaller than v, print w is smaller than v, and in the else you only have one case left, which is w is equal to v, right? So I will put a double equal so you don't get confused with these, the equal that gives the value and the double equal that checks the value. So now if we run w is greater than v, if we make it 10, w is equivalent to v. If we make it 11, w is less than v. So this is how the structure works. If this is true, it will run this line of code and skip everything else. If this is false, it will check this condition. If it's true, it will run this. If it's false, it will skip it. And if everything is false, it would go down to the else and run the else instead. Right? So you might be thinking to yourself, why wouldn't I use an if statement and then another if statement and then an else statement? Why did I have to use the else if? So the else, this is how the structure of the if and else works. This else is connected to the if that is directly above it, right? The else if doesn't count as an if by itself, which is why all three of these are interconnected, because we use the else if. But in this structure, this else is only connected to the if right above it. Both of these are not connected to this if. So if this if statement yields a true value, the code will still check for the second if. It will not skip it. Right? So this is not what we want. Now, we are using Python 3.12, I think. Yep, Python 3.12. Apparently from Python 3.10, they have added the switch case. If anybody has coded before, you know what I'm talking about. For anybody that's new, I will explain it. But it's not a switch in Python, it's a match, right? So let's say we have like 100 different conditions, right? And you'd have to write 100 different else if. Well, this is an easier way to do it. Let's say match W, and then we write case 1, for example. Then we print W is equal to 1, right? So now we select, and in PyCharm you can use Control D to copy and paste it as many times as you want. And let's say case 2, case 3, case 4, case 5, and let's change the print statements. So this structure basically replaces the if, elif, and else. This is a easier version of the if, elif, and else. If you are checking whether W is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can switch them up. They don't have to be in the exact same order. So this can be 6, for example. And you will have our 4 here. We can also define a default case using the underscore, and then print W is a different value. I cannot type today. Alright, so print. Now, if we run this, W is a different value because W is 10. The Python interpreter checked each case and he did not find 10 as a case, so here he used the default value. So if we assign 3 to W, there we go, W is equal to 3. So in the next video, I will show you a direct example of how you could use the if, elif, else, and maybe even the match in a program that has little more value than this, right? So that's it for this video.